For a moment, it felt as though time itself leaned in to listen. A warm breath of wind lifted the silver strands of her hair while she knelt before him, this luminous, blue-skinned woman from a world he could barely imagine, and the child's small fingers curled trustingly into her own. His prosthetic leg glinted beneath the sun, the soft earth dusting its metallic surface, but his smile was whole. She whispered his name, her voice a trembling ribbon of warmth that made the man standing behind them forget how to breathe. Elias had seen beauty before, but never anything like the way she looked at his son, like she had been searching for him across galaxies. And when she raised her eyes to meet Elias's, something inside him shifted, unlocked, and turned toward her as if pulled by some ancient, fated gravity neither of them could escape. Elias didn't know then that the mistake that delivered her to his home would unravel everything he thought was broken forever. He didn't know she would change all of it. He only knew that from the instant she arrived, nothing felt ordinary anymore. The day had begun like any other on the Outer Rim settlement. Heat shimmered over the mining fields, the old conveyor lines rattled in lazy protest, and Elias's boots were already covered in dust before the sun fully crested the sandstone ridges. He'd worked alone for so long that he barely noticed the silence anymore. It fit around him like an old coat, heavy, worn, familiar. Kai, his son, usually stayed inside during the worst of the morning heat, tinkering with whatever broken gadget he'd claimed as his new obsession. Even at 8, the boy had a way of making machines behave for him. Elias smiled at the thought, rare, but real, then wiped sweat from his brow and got back to unjamming a rusted or splitter older than both of them combined. That was when he heard the ship. Not a local cargo skimmer. Not a mining drone. Something sleeker, softer, like the sound of silk tearing gently across the sky. He squinted upward, raising a hand to block the glare. A courier vessel drifted down, its chrome hull catching sun like liquid gold. Elias frowned. No one sent couriers out here. No one even remembered this place existed unless they needed scrap. The vessel landed a dozen meters away, lowering elegantly onto dust-softened ground. A symbol glowed on its side, an interplanetary matchmaking crest. He felt his stomach twist. No, he muttered. No, that's gotta be wrong. The hatch slid open. And out she stepped. Her skin was the color of deep twilight, soft and glowing faintly beneath the barren sun. Her long silver-white hair fell in shimmering waves down her back, and her eyes stars, Elias thought before he could stop himself. Actual stars. She stood tall and poised, shoulders squared proudly in a ceremonial sash he'd only seen in vid broadcasts from richer worlds. But when her gaze met his, there was something uncertain there too. Something hopeful. Something that made his chest ache unexpectedly. Elias Ward, she asked, her voice like wind over water, calm, musical, but edged with nerves. He swallowed. Yeah. I am Sarai. Your bonded partner. My what? She blinked. There must be some confusion. I was assigned to this coordinate. Delivered per contract. You requested a bride. No, I didn't. His voice sharpened without meaning to. Look, lady, I don't know who ordered you, but it wasn't me. Sarai's expression flickered, hurt, confusion, disbelief all painted in delicate strokes. The matching protocols are precise. I was prepared for a diplomatic household, a place of influence and prosperity, not, she looked past him toward the weathered shack that served as his home. Her voice softened. Not this. A pang of something, shame, defensiveness, hit him in the ribs. Before he could respond, the front door of the shack banged open. Kai appeared, limping slightly on his prosthetic, eyes wide. Dad. A ship. Who is? He froze when he saw her. Sarai's entire demeanor changed. The tension melted from her face, replaced by a soft, radiant awe. She knelt instantly, as though drawn to him by instinct. Hello, she whispered. Kai stared at her with a mix of fear and fascination, then reached out hesitantly to touch her glowing forearm. Are you real? Her laugh was a warm ripple. Very real. Elias watched the exchange, throat tightening. The boy hadn't looked that open, that alive, in months. Not since the accident that took his mother and his leg. Not since the quiet had begun swallowing their little home whole. But he couldn't let himself get pulled into what he knew was a mistake. Sarai, he said, forcing firmness into his tone. You weren't supposed to come here. Someone messed up. I'll contact the bureau, and they'll sort it out. She rose slowly, and when she looked at him again, something darker swirled behind her iridescent eyes, worry, and something he couldn't name. That may not be possible, she murmured. What do you mean? She hesitated, then stepped closer, close enough that the faint luminescence of her skin painted soft blue light across his chest. My arrival confirmation was routed through a restricted channel. Someone redirected me here deliberately. And not for any benign reason. Elias stiffened. Meaning? I believe, she said softly, that I am being hunted. The words hit him like a punch. Kai's small hand found his father's. Dad. It's all right, Elias said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. Sarai continued, voice trembling slightly. I was meant to marry an aristocrat, a powerful one. I suspected his intentions were political, not emotional, but I never imagined he'd reroute me off record just to keep me hidden for now. Or worse, retrieve me personally later. Elias's pulse quickened. This was not his problem. This was not his life. He didn't need complications, much less galactic political drama landing on his doorstep. But when he looked at her, truly looked, he saw more than trouble. He saw someone terrified but trying not to show it. He saw someone who had expected a life she didn't choose. He saw someone who looked at his son with a tenderness that made Elias's chest tighten painfully. Why here? He asked. Sarai's eyes drifted to Kai, her expression softening into something almost sacred. Because someone knew this address mattered. Someone knew. I would not leave easily. Elias frowned. I don't understand. That's because, she whispered, her eyes shimmering like liquid galaxies, I have sensed something here, something impossible. Something connected to your son. A chill ran down Elias's spine. Kai pressed closer to him. Dad, what does she mean? Sarai looked at them both with a mixture of fear and wonder. Your son carries a resonance within him, a signature no human should possess. Elias blinked. What are you saying? I'm saying, Sarai whispered, her voice trembling with awe and dread, that your son is not who you think he is. And neither am I. The wind shifted. The courier ship hummed behind them like a heartbeat. And far above the dusty horizon, unseen by any of them, a silent drone hovered, watching, recording, relaying their location to someone who was already on his way. Elias didn't sleep that night. Not really. He lay awake long after Kai had drifted off, listening to the occasional hum of Sarai moving softly around the small house. She walked like she was afraid of disturbing the dust. Like she wasn't sure she was allowed to exist here at all. He told her she could take the only real bed they would manage on the cots, but she refused with a gentle firmness that surprised him. So she stood near the window instead, gazing out at the endless dark of the mining flats, her faint blue glow softening the harsh lines of the walls. Elias watched her silhouette in the dimness. Beautiful wasn't the right word. Beautiful was too small. Too simple. She was something else entirely. When she turned, her eyes caught his, shimmering faintly in the dark. You shouldn't keep staring, she said quietly. Why not? It makes my heart stumble. He blinked, caught completely off guard. Heat rose in his chest before he could even think about pushing it down. I wasn't staring, he lied. She smiled, though he could only see the curve of it in her silhouette. Humans lie as easily as they breathe. He huffed. Yeah, well, we don't glow in the dark. No, she murmured. You burn. Their gazes held longer, softer, until he forced himself to sit up, rubbing a hand over his face. You never explained what you meant about Kai. About that resonance thing. Her smile faded. I didn't want to frighten you. You already did. Sarai crossed the room slowly, each step measured and graceful. She lowered herself onto the crate beside him, her presence close enough that her faint luminescence brushed across his skin. In my species, she said softly, there is a kind of inheritance, a genetic signature passed only to certain bloodlines. A spark of ancient origin. My people use it to select mates for political unions, to ensure the line remains pure. You're saying Kai has alien DNA? No. Not DNA. Something older. She hesitated. Something my people once believed was extinct. Elias felt his pulse thudding. How could he? I don't know, she admitted, and there was real fear in her voice. But I felt it the instant I saw him. His presence resonated with mine, as if our energies recognized each other. Elias swallowed hard. So what does that mean for him? It means he is special. And very dangerous to the wrong people. He looked away, jaw tightening. He's been through enough. I know. Her voice softened again. I felt it in him. The loss. The weight he carries so bravely. Elias didn't answer. He didn't trust himself to. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it wrapped around them, warm and fragile. Then Sarai said, I watched you with him today. You love him fiercely. He's all I have, Elias replied. All I had left to hold on to. After Mara died. I just shut everything down. Sarai studied him in that way she did, as though she saw the edges of him that he tried to hide. And now, he looked at her. Really looked. Her starlit eyes. Her soft breath. The extraordinary tenderness she had shown his son after meeting him for barely a minute. Something inside him, the part he'd welded shut years ago, shifted. Now. I don't know, he whispered. Sarai's hand lifted slowly, hesitantly, then brushed the back of his fingers. Electricity shot through him, not metaphorical, but something real, something warm and luminous that crawled up his arm like stardust. She inhaled sharply at the contact, as though the touch unsettled her too. I shouldn't feel this, she said faintly. I was bred for alliances, not emotions. Seems like a bad design flaw, he murmured. She laughed softly, soft enough that he knew she wasn't supposed to. You keep saying things I was never prepared for, Elias Ward. And you keep showing up where I least expect you, Sarai. Their hands remained touching, neither of them daring to pull back. It felt too right. Too impossibly right. But the moment broke when Kai shifted in his sleep, murmuring softly. Sarai turned toward him instantly, her expression filled with a kind of instinctive protectiveness that made Elias's breath catch. You care about him, Elias said quietly. Sarai nodded. I care more than I am allowed. Elias watched her rise and kneel beside Kai's sleeping figure. She brushed a glowing strand of hair from his forehead, her touch tender, reverent. Kai relaxed under her hand, his breathing evening out. She grounds me, Sarai whispered without looking back. Your son. He anchors something inside me I didn't know was drifting. Elias moved beside her, lowering himself to the floor. He hasn't let anyone close since the accident. His heart never healed, she murmured. Not fully. Elias's throat tightened. Neither did mine. Her gaze shifted to him again, soft as moonlight. Then perhaps we mend each other. The words settled between them like a promise. For a moment, Elias let himself lean toward her, drawn by an invisible gravity he didn't understand. Sarai tilted her head just slightly, as though waiting, hoping. But he didn't move closer. Not yet. He wasn't sure he could survive it if this turned out to be temporary. If she was taken back. If she belonged to someone else. He pulled away just enough to break the moment, though every cell in his body begged him not to. Sarai lowered her eyes, understanding but hurt flickering through them. You are afraid. Of losing something again, he admitted. Yeah. She nodded slowly. Then let us move gently. Elias exhaled shakily. I don't know if gentle is possible with you. Her smile warmed again. Then perhaps, carefully. He almost laughed. Right. Carefully. The quiet settled once more, this time warmer, richer. But outside the walls of their small shack, the night was not still. A faint mechanical buzz drifted across the mining flats, too soft for human ears, but Sarai's head snapped up instantly. She rose in one fluid motion, eyes narrowing. What is it? Elias whispered, standing with her. A scout. Her voice trembled. Not from the bureau. From him. The meaning hit Elias like ice. You said he wouldn't come yet. I said I hoped he wouldn't. She moved toward the window, her glow dimming instinctively as she scanned the darkness. Elias followed her gaze. High above the ridgelines, A tiny black dot hovered, silent, observing. Kai stirred again in his sleep, unaware. Elias's voice dropped to a whisper. "What do we do?" Sarai turned to him, and in her eyes there was something new, something fierce, protective, and terrifyingly intimate. "We protect your son," she said. "No matter what comes." The drone blinked, one single red pulse. Location transmitted. And then it vanished into the night. Elias had known fear before. The kind that punched hard and sudden, the kind that stole breath and reason and left a hollow ache in its wake. But the fear he felt now as he stood beside Sarai, staring at the dark horizon where the drone had vanished, was different. It wasn't sharp. It wasn't fast. It settled into him slowly, like cold water rising past his ankles, creeping higher with every heartbeat. Because this time, he wasn't afraid for himself. He was afraid for Kai. Sarai sensed it. She stepped closer, close enough for the faint glow of her skin to warm the space between them. Her voice was gentle when she said, "You need to breathe." "I am," Elias muttered, though his chest felt tight as iron. "You are not. Your heart is racing. Your thoughts are spiraling." He forced air in, shaky and uneven. "Is this what your people do? Read emotions like a manual?" Her expression softened. "Only when those emotions are loud." He let out a breath that was half laugh, half despair. "Yeah. Well. A drone scouting us tends to crank the volume." Sarai turned toward the window again, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the ridgelines. "He was not supposed to find me this quickly. That means someone helped him. Someone powerful." "Why?" Elias whispered. "Why you? Why us?" Sarai hesitated. Then she walked past him, stopping beside Kai's sleeping form. She knelt there, brushing a hand softly over the boy's hair. "Because of him." Elias dropped to a knee beside her. "Kai doesn't deserve this. He's just a kid." Sarai's voice trembled. "He is not just anything." He frowned. "Explain." She lifted her gaze to his, eyes bright with something ancient and aching. "My people once held the belief that certain lineages carried a spark of something divine. A resonance, an echo of the primordial energies that shaped the first stars. It was rare, precious, feared and worshipped in equal measure. But over millennia, that lineage disappeared. Or so we thought." "And Kai?" Sarai nodded. "When I touched him earlier today, it felt like touching the heart of a fallen star." Elias swallowed. "That doesn't make sense. His mother was human. I'm human." "Then something unexpected happened in your bloodline," Sarai murmured. "A convergence. A mutation. Or perhaps destiny simply bent toward him." Elias shook his head. If he has something so important inside him, why didn't he heal after the accident? Sarai's lips pressed together. "Because resonance is awakened. Not born." "Awakened by what?" She looked at him for a long, still moment. Elias felt the air shift around them. "By love." The words knocked something loose inside him, a memory, a grief, a yearning. "Love isn't magic," he said roughly. "It is the oldest magic," Sarai whispered. "And the most powerful." "But Kai has been living in grief, Elias. Drowning in loss. Love cannot ignite where a heart has closed itself to survive." Elias stared at his son, curled small against the thin blanket, face softened in sleep. He looked younger when he dreamed, before the world had carved sorrow into him. Sarai's voice softened further. "He felt something today. When I touched him. When you stood beside him. A resonance between the three of us. It sparked. Only faintly. But it was enough for him to be sensed, tracked." Elias's stomach twisted painfully. "So what happens if they take him?" Sarai's breath hitched. "They will not simply take him. They will use him. They will bind him to their bloodline. They will force him into a destiny that will break him." Elias closed his eyes, fighting the surge of panic. "No. No. I can't, I won't let that happen." Sarai reached out, taking his hand. Her fingers were cool and soft, but the warmth that surged through him at her touch was immediate and overwhelming. He held on tightly, more tightly than he meant to, but she did not pull away. "Elias," she whispered, "we will protect him." Together. He looked at her, really looked. Her luminous skin. Her starlit eyes. The fierce tenderness that defined every expression she made. She wasn't just some genetically bred bride. She was more human than anyone Elias had ever known. The realization hit him like sunlight breaking through cloud. She wasn't a stranger anymore. She was becoming something else entirely. He exhaled slowly. Why are you helping us? You don't owe us anything. Her eyes softened. You are wrong. She looked down at Kai again. When I arrived today, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, I felt lost. I felt unwanted. Designed for a life I did not choose. But your son, he looked at me like I was something wondrous. Like I mattered. That has never happened to me before. Elias felt his throat tighten. And you, Sarai continued, meeting his gaze, you did not treat me like an object. You questioned me. Challenged me. You saw me. Elias's chest tightened painfully. Sarai. She shook her head softly, silver hair brushing her cheeks. You asked why I help you. It is simple. I chose to. He hadn't expected those words to hit him so deeply. But they did. They struck something raw and long buried, pulling it back into the light. Before he could speak, Kai stirred in his sleep with a soft whimper. Sarai immediately leaned over him, her glow brightening instinctively. Kai calmed under her touch. Elias watched, spellbound. Her tenderness. His trust. The three of them forming something fragile and new. He reached out, touching Sarai's hand where it rested on Kai's chest. She looked over at him, eyes shining with something more vulnerable than fear. More intense than duty. Connection. It pulsed between them like a living thing. Sarai's breath caught. Elias, do you feel that? Yes, he whispered. Their fingers intertwined. And for a moment, the world outside dissolved. There was no drone. No threat. No aristocratic monster on his way to reclaim what he believed was his. There was only this feeling, soft, warm, terrifying, and right. Then the night ripped open. A thunderous boom shook the ground. The window flashed white as something streaked through the sky overhead, fast, burning, metallic. Elias yanked Sarai close, shielding her on instinct, even though she was the one glowing with power. She pressed against him, her breath sharp with fear. Outside, the night roared. Sand whipped against the shack in violent gusts. Machinery rattled like bones. Kai woke screaming. Elias grabbed him, pulling him close. Sarai wrapped her arms around both of them, her glow flaring bright. And then a shadow fell over the shack. A ship, massive, obsidian, and unmistakably aristocratic, descended with predatory grace, its hull shining like liquid void. A voice echoed through the dust-choked air, amplified by inhuman technology. Sarai of the Luminaris line, it boomed. You will surrender yourself. And the boy. Sarai froze. Elias felt her hand tremble in his. The voice continued, colder. Fail to comply, and the father dies. The world seemed to stop breathing. The ship's shadow swallowed the shack, a darkness so heavy it felt as though the air itself tightened. Elias's arms locked protectively around Kai, and Sarai rose in front of them like a shield, small, glowing, trembling, but unbreakable. The voice boomed again from the cruiser overhead. Sarai. Step forward. Now. She didn't move. Not yet. Elias swallowed hard, stepping beside her. Sarai, what does he want with Kai? Why him? Her voice was barely a whisper. Because power clings to old blood. And he wants to bind that power to his throne. By hurting my son? Elias spat. Hurt, Sarai said, eyes darkening, would be the kindest fate he intends. Elias's heart pounded. Rage. Fear. Love. All tangled into something sharp. Sarai turned to him. And for the first time since the day she arrived, she looked afraid not of the cruiser, not of her pursuer, but of something far more fragile. Of losing them. I cannot let him take Kai, she breathed. I will not. But to save him, I must face him. I must go to that ship. No, Elias said instantly. We'll find some other way. There is no other way, she whispered. He believes I belong to him. And he believes your son is his destiny. I must make him believe otherwise. How? Elias demanded. You can't fight a cruiser alone. Sarai's gaze flicked to Kai, small, shaking, eyes wide with terror. And she finally said it. Not alone. Before Elias could question it, she reached out and took both their hands, hers folding around theirs like a living spark. I told you resonance awakens through connection, she said softly. And it has already begun. A pulse ran through Elias's chest, warm, electric, expanding outward through his arm into Sarai's palm. Kai gasped as the same light passed through him. Their joined hands glowed faintly. Elias stared. What is that? Bond, Sarai whispered. The beginning of something ancient. A triad resonance, rare, forbidden, powerful. The ship overhead descended lower, engines roaring, dust exploding upward. Sarai squeezed their hands. This is how we survive. By standing as one. A beam of dark energy burst from the ship, striking the ground only meters away, warning, not attack. Last chance, the amplified voice growled. Surrender. Now. Sarai rose to her full height, eyes blazing. Elias, she whispered, trust me. He didn't think. He didn't hesitate. I do. She breathed in sharply, her entire body glowing with sudden intensity. Then hold on. There was a burst of light, blinding and fierce, wrapping around the three of them like a cocoon. Elias felt weightlessness, felt Sarai's presence inside his mind for a heartbeat, warm and bright and impossibly intimate, then the world snapped back into place. They stood aboard the cruiser. Metal walls shimmered with obsidian sheen. The air tasted cold. The lights dimmed, as though recognizing the presence of something unwelcome. Kai clung to Elias, trembling. And before them, standing on a raised dais, was the alien noble. Tall. Silver-skinned. Eyes like carved ice. His ceremonial armor gleamed with symbols of an ancient house. He smiled. Not kindly. Finally, he purred. My bride, and my heir. Sarai stepped forward immediately, placing herself between the noble and the humans. I am not your bride. The noble tilted his head. I paid for your creation. You paid for a vessel, Sarai hissed. Not a heart. The noble's gaze shifted to Kai. Bring the boy. Elias surged forward, instinct overriding fear. Touch him and I'll. You will die, the noble interrupted calmly. But slowly. After watching me reshape your child into something far greater than human. Elias moved anyway. Sarai grabbed his arm, stopping him. No. Anger will get him taken. But his threatening. I know, she whispered fiercely. But trust me. Her hand slipped down to Kai's wrist, her fingers glowing. The resonance flared again, stronger this time. The air around them vibrated. Elias felt it deep in his bones, like his blood was singing. The noble's eyes widened slightly. Impossible. Sarai turned her head slightly, just enough for Elias to hear her. He feels it. He fears it. Elias understood. The noble wanted power, but feared losing control of it. Sarai stepped forward, her glow illuminating the chamber. You cannot bind something that was not born to your line. It carries the ancient spark, the noble growled. It belongs to me. It resonates with us, Sarai said, voice soft but unyielding. With me. With them. You cannot sever a bond born of love. The noble scoffed. Love. You were engineered. And yet I feel, Sarai breathed. More deeply than you ever will. The noble lunged. Elias acted without thought. He shoved Kai behind him and stepped into the attack, even knowing he could never match strength with an alien bred for dominance. But he didn't need strength. He had resonance. The moment the noble struck, Sarai grabbed Elias's hand. Light exploded from their joined palms, slamming into the noble with a force that shook the chamber. He staggered back, armor cracking where the energy hit. What is that? He snarled. Elias didn't know how to answer, but Sarai did. Humanity, she said simply. The noble roared and charged again. This time, Kai cried out not in fear, but in response. His body glowed, brighter than Elias or Sarai. His small hand reached out instinctively, and the resonance answered him, amplifying exponentially. A wave of pure, brilliant energy surged outward. The noble was thrown across the room, slamming into the wall hard enough to fracture the plating. He collapsed, groaning, unable to rise. Silence followed. Heavy. Laboured. Disbelieving. Elias stared at Kai, who looked down at his shaking hands in awe. "Dad. I didn't mean to." Elias knelt, pulling him into a tight embrace. "You saved us." Sarai joined them, folding her arms around both, her glow soft and warm now. "You awakened," she whispered to Kai. "With your heart. Not your power." Kai buried his face into her chest. "I was scared. I didn't want him to take you." Sarai kissed the top of his head. "And I will never leave you." Elias lifted his gaze to her, his chest full, aching, overflowing. "Sarai, what happens now? What about your people? This noble? The Bureau?" "They will learn," Sarai said softly, "that destiny cannot be bought. And that love, true love, creates its own lineage." She looked at Elias with such intense tenderness that he forgot how to breathe. "I choose you," she whispered. "Not because I was delivered to your doorstep. Not because of resonance. Because my heart knows you." Elias cupped her face gently. "I love you, Sarai." Light shimmered in her eyes like constellations. "And I love you." Kai looked between them, a small smile blooming on his face, brighter than any star. Sarai rose, still holding their hands. "Come. Let us leave this place. Together." The cruiser hummed, lights flickering as if bowing to a new power in its halls. And as they stepped toward the exit, human, alien, and child-bound not by fate but by choice, the stars beyond the viewport stretched out before them. A future unwritten. A family unbreakable. A love powerful enough to reshape the galaxy.